1. Okay, and this is the Hoover Library Sci-Fi Fantasy Festival comic book panel entitled What Comics Should You Be Reading? And we are KingdomCasts Podcast. I'm Stan Daniel. With me as always is Albert Marsh. There you go. See, you waved that time. And joining us once again is Sandra. Mara did nothing wrong to Captain Jack Sparrow swindle.
Oh, you can see my eye rolls now, can't you?
Yeah, there you go. They can officially see your eye rolls, Sandra. All right. So basically, this panel is going to be about comic books that we think are too good for you to miss. I mean, and all the brouhaha of each Wednesday week when the new comics come out, you rush in, get your pull list. You may have time to browse, and some of the titles may be on shelves. Some of them may be sold out by the time you get there, but we just want to make you aware of a few that you may not be aware of. So, in other words, comic titles like Superman, the X-Men, Batman, we're just going to assume you're all well aware of, and we're going to pick a handful of comics out there from, it doesn't matter what publisher, just whatever strikes us, and we're going to do a little round table where we each suggest a comic, talk about it a minute, and come back to it. So that's what you're in for the next hour. And unlike our regular KingdomCasts podcasts, there's nothing. We're not going to have anything to bleep. Albert's not going to go off on a wild tangent or
yes,
anything.
I am.
We're not going to have to round him up.
Yes,
Everything's going to be very family friendly because Kristen has kidnapped my dog and threatened to kill it if it isn't. So yeah,
she ain't got my dog.
Kristen's at the Hoover Library. So all right, let's get started. I'll kick us off. And the first one I want to kick us off with is one that I was just alerted to, or we were just alerted to by a listener to the podcast, Grant. He had told us about the Nice House on the Lake and asked us to check it out. It's written by James Tunyon IV and drawn by Avera Martinez Bueno. And I've got to tell you, I go out of my way to look for things that I find fit in the horror genre. And I'm not a big gore guy, so Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, that doesn't cut it for me. But so far, these first 2 issues of the Black Label, DC Black Label comic, Nice House by the Lake, they're really, really well done. I love the tension that's built up. I love the artwork. The artwork suits it perfectly. It's a very realistic comic with an apocalyptic overtone to it. It's got a good mystery running in it. It's got great caricature all the way throughout it. This, to me, is something you need to look at if you're even remotely interested in scary psychological comics. Albert, you read the whole thing through. What'd you think?
Yeah, the first 2 issues are out. I really enjoyed it. The basic plot is all these people are invited to this house on the lake, and they all know this one individual. Well, this one individual shows up, says everything will be okay, and then the end of the world's going on, but they're all completely okay. This house gives them everything they want, everything they need, and they're just trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So far, now the house is not magical, the house is not set up as magical. The house looks to be restocked. They just don't know how it's going to get restocked. And this guy, the guy that knows each of these individuals that he's picked to put in the house, he has a personal connection to each. Comes across as almost like while he was posing as a human, he considers them pets. And he didn't want anything bad to happen to him, so he sets them up in this nice house by the lake. This is really good stuff. I'm really looking forward to the rest of it. I know DC Black Label cost a little bit more, but like, what was the other title? The Gods?
Last of the Gods, or Last Gods, or something.
The Last Gods. Yeah, I think it's really worth it. I think it really it really pays for itself. At least it does, so far as I'm concerned. Sandra, you flipped through it.
Well, it's psychological horror. It's very creepy, but it's there's not any gore in it, which I'm fine. I'm very fine with that. But so if you like a good psychological horror, that's the book for you.
Yeah,
And there's, like you said, a mystery going on. So
Well, it seems to be oddly, it seems to be inspired by reality television, like Big Brother and stuff like that, where they just sort of get a bunch of people, throw them in a house, and be like, you've got to be in this house at all times or whatever. So,
yeah, it really does. I didn't think of that angle, but you're absolutely right. Except they can't vote each other out.
oh, I'm sure
well,
there's
Well,
gonna
maybe
be some
there's another
voting
way
about
to
it.
vote each other.
well,
Yeah.
they got guns, so
Well, this is just an interesting read, so I recommend you pick it up. Again, that's Nice House by the Lake from DC's Black Label Comics, written by James Tynion, and just give it a look, see what you think. All right, Albert, what's your recommendation? What would you
my
recommend?
first recommendation is Department of Truth
Ah,
by James Tynion, art by Simmons. It's put out by Vision. It is a conspiracy comic. The Department of Truth is a government agency that's ran by Lee Harvey Oswald, an old Lee Harvey Oswald, because it takes place, I believe, just now in modern times. So he's an old man, and it's sort of like the pseudo Men in Black style stuff. Not humor wise, but as far as that style conspiracy level stuff. But the Department of Truth is going against some other group, and the thing is, they're trying to keep reality straight, where the other group's trying to just bend everything all out of whack, like making the Earth actually flat. Bigfoot's out there and things like that. So
yeah, Bigfoot was this week's issue, just came out.
it was the last
I'm
issue.
Yeah, the latest issue was Bigfoot. And we're not completely clear on the other organization's motivation to do this, but they've been behind the 1980s Satanic Panic.
Yeah.
The Flat Earth Organization situation, the Neil Armstrong didn't land on the moon, all of this stuff. And again, that's by Tunyon also.
Yeah, and they also seem to be behind whatever the JFK thing is, because apparently, they I guess that was them trying to get Lee Harvey Oswald or something off the board or something weird like that. But there's an origin, not really an origin issue, but there was like a break issue in there with a different artist that gives you a little hint of how far back this went and everything else involved with it.
Yeah, and it's not just they're trying to change people's beliefs. It's in changing people's beliefs they change reality.
Yeah.
So the more people that believe in the flat Earth, the flatter the Earth actually becomes. Yeah, not quite like that, but same thing. My favorite issue was the Denver airport issue.
Yeah, the airport issue was real good.
Yeah, and I mean, because everything he used in that, up until he got into the subterranean tunnels, all of that was true. And Tynion's done his artwork on. So that's 2 books by Tynyon so far. And Sandra, you're completely up on Department of Truth. What'd you think?
I liked it better when it started out.
Yeah.
It's dragging a little bit for me. I think between the arcs, he had another artist, and they kind of went off on the tangent with was it the aliens or the Men in Black?
Well, the fill-in artist issue went as far as back of like popes and stuff like that. So.
Well, I guess I'm just not as up on the conspiracy theories as you guys are, but I really enjoyed the first couple issues until we hit that between arc thing. It's not an easy book to read.
No.
Because
he makes you work for it in more ways than one.
Like you got to put a little bit of effort in there,
and you have to have a genuine interest in the stuff he's talking about.
Right. That's why I said I'm sure I'm missing out on a lot because I didn't know anything about that airport in Denver. So, but if you're into conspiracy theories, yeah, this is the book for you.
I don't know how you didn't know about the airport in Denver. I mean,
because I don't follow conspiracy theories.
Do you know about Fatima in Conyers, Georgia? You live in Georgia. Surely to God, you know about Fatima in Conyers.
No.
well, it's not going on now, or at least I'm not aware, but at one time it used to attract thousands upon thousands of people, overwhelming the then small town of Conyers, Georgia, because one woman was having the Mother Mary visit her on a regular basis. And a couple of strange things did happen. I mean, it could all have been orchestrated, but that's one that he could really touch upon if he gets around to it, because the Fatima issues are coming for Department of Truth. That's one subject he's touched on, but he hasn't gone directly into. So, okay, so far we've got Nice House on the Lake, Department of Truth, both of them by Tunyon, who I said at the beginning, very gifted, very talented writer. Sandra, give us one of your picks.
I'm going to go with the I believe this is a French graphic novel. It's actually 3 books called the Ogre Gods series by, I believe the author is, let me mangle his name, Hubert, and the illustrator is Bertrand Gatignol. It's mostly black and white. And it's a fantasy novel kind of set in like a 1700s, 1600s era world that is ruled by these ogres, and they're giant size. So they have a castle, and it's kind of like Gulliver's Travels, except it's kind of like a fairy tale, but a horrifying fairy tale, because the ogres, they have all these humans that attend to them, and the art's fantastic because you'll have this giant ogre like in a big 1600 wig, and you have these little bitty humans like, climbing up them and trying to get them dressed and everything. But the horrifying part is the ogres eat the humans. They actually have like a human farm, and so it's kind of like you see this French nobility kind of thing going on, except that there's these little bitty humans and that they do get eaten. So the first one is called Petite, and that one is like the ruler of this castle. He's his son, but for some reason he's not as tall or as big as the ogres. He's kind of like a throwback.
Who puts this out?
Magnetic. Let's see. Yeah, it's under the Magnetic imprint. It's not a floppy. I mean, you get like the graphic novels, and it's black and white, and there's like an Aubrey Beardsley line work. It's not. It's definitely not for children, but I really enjoyed it. And then the second one is called Half Blood.
Wait a minute. Slow down. We're going around. We each do one, and then we come back.
Well, this is a series. I'm not going to talk about.
This is a series. I'm sorry.
Yeah. There's 3 books out. There's the series is called Ogre Gods. The first book is called Petite, and it deals with this. I hate to say heir, but the heir who's not very ogreish. The second one is called Half Blood, and then there's a third one out. I'm trying to remember what that one was called. Anyway, if you look for the Ogre Gods and look for some pictures, you'll see that it's you'll see if that's your cup of tea, because I mean you can tell from the art right away if that's something you'd be interested in.
Whether or not it's going to appeal to you.
Right.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed it.
All right. Well, my next one up, and I'm going to go back to the reservation here to Marvel Comics, and it's a 1 of 5 limited series, and it just came out this week, but I fell in love with it with the first issue. Amazing Fantasy #1, and it's done by a variety of writers and artists. Or it's actually done by one writer and a variety of artists. And I cannot recommend it enough. It deals with deals with Captain America, Spider-Man, and Black Widow, but apparently alternate reality versions of themselves. Amazing Fantasy #1, Arrival, is written by Carr Andrews. It's put out by Marvel Comics. And it starts off with Captain America's story, and then it flashes over to Black Widow's story, and then it flashes back over to Spider-Man's story. And they all end up in a very fantastic, out there realm. It's at first you kind of think it's the Savage Land if you know Marvel Comics lore, but it's clearly not the Savage Land. And then there is a revelation provided to Spider-Man at the very end of it to let him know what's going on, or to set the tone for the rest of the story. You kind of suspect it, but at the same time, because of these characters that you're dealing with, you don't fully suspect it. Spider-Man has been pulled from the 1960s, when at the very early stages of Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man. Natasha, the Black Widow, is pulled from childhood. She can't be much older than 12 or 13 when she's pulled into the situation. And Captain America is pulled into the situation from the middle of World War II, when he's still a little bit wet behind the ears and just getting used to going out into uniform. This is a different kind of Marvel comic, and Carr Andrews' work in the past has been pretty solid. So I heavily suggest, if you're at all a fan of any of the three of these characters, take a look at Savage. I think I got the name wrong. Take a look at Amazing Fantasy #1. It's a 5-issue series, and I think it's well worth your time. It was surprising and engaging to me. Have either of you looked at that this week?
I looked at the covers. They had
No, I haven't read that yet. I hadn't had time to read anything.
Yeah.
It was surprisingly well done. It was the drop dead last thing I read because I was not necessarily looking forward to it. There hadn't been a lot of publicity or press behind it. And when I did look at it, I was completely, when I read it, I'm completely in on this. 5 issues. You don't lose anything. This is a solid comic. You got another one for us, Albert?
Yep. My second one is from Boom Studios. It is Berserker, spelled BRZRKR. It's a comic book from Keanu Reeves, written by Matt Kent and drawn by Ron Garney. From my understanding, it's supposed to be, because it was a Kickstarter thing, I believe the Kickstarter said it's supposed to be 12 issues long and chopped up into 3 trade paperbacks. I think this week is issue 4. It takes the goofy internet meme of Keanu Reeves being a vampire or immortal and makes a comic book out of it. He's not a vampire in this. Instead, he's like some super ultimate warrior who's super powerful and can regenerate and everything.
Rejiggerate or regenerate?
Regenerate.
I want to see him rejiggerate, Albert.
Yeah. But it's great art by Ron Garney. Writing by Matt Kent. Said 4 issues this week. Great. It's been a great. If you want a really good action comic, this is it right here. So. Yeah,
the issues I've read have been spectacular. You know, Ron Garney's carrying most of the writing on that, but it's still
Ron Garney. I'm sorry. Artist.
Who's co-writing it with him?
Matt Kent.
Matt Kent. I'm sorry. Matt Kent's probably carrying most of the weight on definitely on the scripting and all, but it's great to have Keanu in on this. I've been very entertained by it.
Yep.
Sandra, you haven't read one issue of that, have you?
No.
Yeah, okay.
Can't say I have.
Well, while we're on the subject of Keanu, did y'all ever see the last Bill and Ted movie?
No, I never got around to watching it.
It's on Amazon. If you want, I think it's on Amazon. Maybe Netflix, but it's on Amazon. I sat through it, watched it. I mean, it's going to make you chuckle a couple of times. And the 2 young women do a great job as their daughters. I mean, a really great job as their daughters. But it's better than the second one, but it's nowhere near as good as the first one.
I like the second one.
I thought the second one was okay. The heaven scene and the robots, all of it got to be a little bit too much. I still like the first one the best. So take your time and take a look at that. I mean, if you got Amazon Prime or Netflix or whatever it's on one of the two, Amazon or Netflix. All right, Sandra, we've gone one of your picks without having anything to do with water whatsoever. So what's pick two, Sandra?
I assume that people have been listening to the podcast and have heard
Don't.
me. Oh, all right. I guess I better change my my pick then.
No, don't change your pick. Go ahead. One or two of them may have heard of the podcast.
Well, I'm going to say King in Black Namor. It's like a spinoff from the King in Black event. The trade paperback came out. It collects 5 issues. It's written by industry legend Kurt Busiek. I'm surprised they roped him in for this, but somehow Marvel got him to write this. And the artist is, well, there's 2 artists, because the story takes place in the quote unquote present during the King in Black event, and but the bulk of the book takes place in the past. I mean, it goes way into the past, like when Namor was a teenager, and basically relates how he met Atuma and what probably is the start of their antipathy toward each other. But it also creates a new set of rogues for Namor. That he tries to use against Null in the King of Black series. The artist for the stuff in the past is Benjamin Dewey, and the artist for the few framing pieces that are in the present is Johann Scarf. And their styles don't mesh, but they fit perfectly for the eras that they are illustrating, because Benjamin Dewey, who, if you're not familiar with Benjamin Dewey, he did Autumn Lands with Kurt Busiek, which is a creator-owned book. I think there's 2 trades out, which is kind of the talking animals fantasy world. It was really good. He's a very he does animals really well, and there's a certain freshness to his art that fits with, like kind of like a teen Namor book. It also has one of my favorite characters in Namor's world, which is Lady Dorma. So when she's young.
And that's Namor's mother, right?
No, Namor's mother is Princess Finn. Lady Dorma is the woman he ends up getting married to.
How's that marriage working out for Namor?
Well, he got Gwen Stacy'd before Gwen Stacy got Gwen Stacy'd, so not good.
So the marriage didn't work out well for him. Did you read the conclusion to Dr. Doom's marriage in the Fantastic Four this week?
Yes, I did. Well, I got most of it. I didn't finish reading it, but everybody sent me the panels where everything is going to hell, and Namor still finds time to hit on Sue.
I think the overall message in the issue of Fantastic Four, where just a quick setup, Dr. Doom decides that his right-hand person, who he had empowered with superpowers and gave a code name to of Victorious, is going to be his bride. But before he decides this, Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, ends up having a one-night stand with Victorious. And then at the wedding, Victorious breaks down and in front of Doom, God, and everybody confesses that she had this liaison with the Human Torch before Doom proposed to her. And so, of course, Doom decides, rightfully so, that this was an attempt by the Fantastic Four to embarrass and humiliate him. And so he has no option other than to retaliate right then and there. But I think the overall moral of this story is that Johnny Storm slept with a strange European woman, and now it burns when he pees. Yep.
Next pick.
Well, wait a minute. That's Dan's pick. I didn't finish with my pick. Thank you
That
very
wasn't
much,
a pick.
Dan.
I was just sharing some information while we were talking about Namor.
The reason why that came up was not because Stan wanted to just ruin my pick, but because Namor appears in the Bride of Doom arc. But anyway, this is my pick is a great book. It has a fantasy Lovecraft kind of thing going, but it's also got like a teen CW vibe going, I guess. And then it has this kind of horror thing because Jonas Scarf, who does the present day settings, he's done I think Bone Parish. So he's got a horror vibe going on. It was just a really entertaining tale, and lots of things that a good introduction to the underwater world. Most of it takes place underwater.
Cool, man.
Well, I would hope so.
Well, it's Namor, so.
Well, sadly, there's been a couple of them that haven't taken place underwater.
It was a fairly solid book. I went back and I reread it after Noel was over for about a week or two, and I liked it better than I liked it up on the initial reading. I think you're absolutely right. This was a solid background setup for Namor to fill out some things for some new readers coming on and giving him more things to deal with potentially in the future. And Albert, you liked it too, didn't you?
The Namor series was real good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, Kurt Busiek, he's solid.
God, yeah. Kurt Busiek is, as you said, a legend in the comic book industry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to jump off the reservation again and go to Dark Horse Comics and recommend Norse Mythology, written and based on Neil Gaiman's novel, Norse Mythology, and drawn by P. Craig Russell. And there's 2 volumes to it. All of it is coming directly out of Neil Gaiman's Norse Mythology number. But the beauty of this is the artwork inside of it. The artwork, the multiple covers, everything else. While I've got the novel, I'm going to want to get this as a companion piece to the novel because really it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. And Neil Gaiman has a wonderful take and a wonderful way of relaying the classic Norse mythology. If you're at all interested in Thor, you like the Thor movies, you like Loki, you pick this up in comic book format. Also, I'd recommend picking up the novel, but pick this up in comic book format for the art as well. This is a wonderful book, and it's one of these rare exceptions where a comic book works just as well, if not a little bit better, in comic book, it has a novel in comic book format. Sandra, you've been looking into it too, haven't you? You've seen one. You're at least aware that there's something called Norse mythology in existence, right?
No, I read the first trade. It was very good. It has several stories are illustrated by P. Craig Russell, who is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think one is illustrated by Dan Jurgen.
Yeah, he does. They do jump on the art a bit.
But all of it was good. So I would recommend it.
Albert, you've been in on it too, right?
Which book?
Norse Mythology.
Yeah. Because it was they just started at volume 2, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I've enjoyed it. It's been a nice little fun read.
Yeah.
Fantastic artwork.
Yeah, fantastic artwork. It complements Neil Gaiman's storytelling style real well. So keep your eye out for that if you've not seen it, if you're not familiar with it. What have you got, Albert? You got another one?
I guess.
Well, you don't have to guess. I've got more.
Okay, I guess as a third one, if I can find the writer. It's Batman Superman.
Yeah.
The writer's last name is Yang. I've really enjoyed this book. This current arc, it's on issue 20 this week. The current arc, which is a new writer, involves sort of a being that works with like film and stuff. Like it's an oddball pitch, but you're not dealing with the normal Batman and Superman. You're dealing with a Batman and Superman that are like from different pulp worlds, and they sort of get involved with trying to take down this sort of filmmaker type bad guy. And they end up going to like a Western world with old Western heroes. This week they run across Etrigan, who tries to burn the worlds apart. It's got an odd little framing device because most of the comic book panels are did as film reels, but it's been a real great read. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've been reading that as well. It's that the beings that are doing this or that are involving themselves in are from another dimension, and the way that it's being related to us is that we're seeing Batman and Superman stories occur in film strips.
Yeah,
and they're
like
able to.
The main antagonist's name is something like Archer EO or
Something
Archer
like
EO or so. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but he's sort of like a crazy director type guy, and he's trying to splice all this stuff and kill these characters and take over and rewrite reality. But he does it with like film strips, and they're trying to stop him.
Yeah, and they're managing to punch through each other's film strips, and by doing so, going to different stories, different realities as well. And Etrigan has shown up. Etrigan the Demon has shown up as a full-blown bad guy.
And this one, he is.
Yeah,
he works a deal with the main bad guy, and he goes after Batman and Superman's worlds.
It's been a long time since Etrigan has shown up as a full-blown bad guy. He's usually, middle of the road at best. And most of the time, he's actually portrayed as a hero.
Yeah, but the writer is Gene Luen Yang, and I believe the artist is Ivan Rice.
Okay, and that's the Superman Batman comic from DC, right?
Yep, issue 20 was this week, and this arc is this writer's first arc on it. So it's a pretty, like, if you just get to the first issue of this arc, you can jump on no problem.
Excellent. All right, Sandra, you got another one?
Yeah, I've got one from Image called Monstrous. It's by the writer's Majori. I think that's what Majori Liu, and the artist is Sana Takeda. Now this has been going on for there's 6 trade paperbacks out. This is a gorgeous book. Image describes it as steampunk meets kaiju. But I would say it's kind of like a manga steampunk with a more like a Lovecraft Elder Gods thing going on.
And what'd you say the name of the book was?
Monstrous.
Yeah, that book. Yeah, the art of that's fantastic though.
It's gorgeous. The art is gorgeous. I mean, if you read manga and you want to kind of move into to see more Western style, even though Sana Takeda is Japanese, she's doing the graphic novel, kind of melding both worlds. It's just a gorgeous book. I mean, it's worth looking at for just the art. And Image has the first issue online for free at their website, imagecomics.com, so you could test it out and see if that's your cup of tea. But it's got a Art Nouveau, Art Deco, manga, steampunk, fantasy. It mixes up all kinds of stuff. And then, like I said, it's the main character has a how shall I put it, is kind of merged or connected to some elder god, with a lot of tentacles and eyes. So it's an interesting mix, and it's just a gorgeous book. There's 6 volumes out. We don't talk about it much on the podcast, but we don't talk about it at all, but I highly recommend it. It's a really good, a beautiful read.
I look forward to editing this section out of this.
Why? It's my aunt?
No, I was just kidding about monstrous and not talking on. If you're noticing that Sandra is fading in and out, and some furniture is fading in and out behind her, it's because she's been stalking Benedict Cumberbatch and kind of caught herself up in an interdimensional realm here. So, Monstrous is a beautiful book, always has been, and it has legs. It's a solid book, and it's one that's been out there a while, so it is one that's easily overlooked. Because by now the comic book shops have got their ordering down pat on it and know exactly how many of that comic book they're going to sell per issue. While we're on the subject, before I recommend another comic, while we're on the subject, Sweet Tooth from Image Comics is out there. And Sweet Tooth is also on Netflix. I watched the whole thing.
Oh my gosh, really?
I thought DC put out Sweet Tooth.
Well, is it Vertigo? It is Vertigo.
The original book was Vertigo.
Yeah, it's DC. I'm sorry. Vertigo DC puts out Sweet Tooth, and look, that's well worth looking into. However, if you've already seen it on Netflix, my personal opinion is I think the Netflix series translates better than the comics.
I agree.
Well, the comics are much darker.
Yeah, they are.
Has the because I read the comic when they originally came out, and I love that comic.
Mm-hmm.
The TV show is a nice adaptation of it that gives it more of a
broader
adventure. I guess more of an adventure feel to it, without being like as dark and as like, hey, I mean, the book is almost just like if you ever read the book or saw the movie The Road.
Yeah.
It's not that, but it's way closer than that than it is to this TV show.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was about to say, because I didn't care for the art in the graphic novel. I tried to read the first trade of Sweet Tooth, and I just couldn't get past the art. So
I've read Sweet Tooth, and like I said, I like the Netflix adaptation better. That's why I was putting off watching the Netflix adaptation, honestly. So if you've seen the Netflix adaptation, take the opportunity to look into Sweet Tooth, but know that book is a darker tone to it.
Yeah.
It's not full blown The Road, but on that scale, it's a lot closer to Miserable than the TV series is. So there you go. It's a solid comic. Don't get me wrong, but the artwork is can be off-putting. The artwork's good. I'm not slamming the artist at all, but the artwork is designed to be a little bit off-putting to match the mood of the comic book. So keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to make another recommendation here, and I'm going back onto the, ranch, so to speak. DC Comics, Wonder Girl by Joelle Jones. This character first appeared in DC Comics Future State event, which the three of us just simply did not care for overall, with the exception of the Wonder Woman comics, where this character first appeared as the new Wonder Woman. Joelle Jones is doing a wonderful job on Wonder Girl. I'm loath to say it, but if they're going to replace Diana with anybody in the role of Wonder Woman, this is the character to do it with. She's got beautiful, outstanding design, outstanding artwork. She's building up a wonderful mythology behind the Wonder Girl character, and she's at the same time she's paying tribute to what's come before. So Joelle Jones is doing a wonderful job with Wonder Girl from DC Comics, and this is one of those ground floor events that you can get in on and say, I've followed her from the start, because out of everybody that they've introduced of late, I feel that this character is going to go the farthest, the longest, especially if they keep Joelle Jones on her. Outstanding work. Albert, you're up on Wonder Girl as well, right?
Yeah, it's a great book. Solid character. Really enjoy it as long as they, stay the course on it.
Yeah, and I think a large part of that is keeping Joelle Jones there as long as possible. To manage and guide this character. Sandra, how you're familiar with her, right? The Wonder Girl, but you haven't read the last 2 issues of it?
I haven't read any of the new Wonder Girl. But I did read Joelle Jones' Lady Killer, and that was an awesome book. An awesome book. So I'm sure because she does is she doing the art and the writing?
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. She's done the art and the writing on all of her major appearances. There's some minor appearances where it was Superman and Wonder Woman, Future State, that she didn't do the art on, but she did the art on both the Future State comics and both the current issues of Wonder Girl that are out right now. So yeah, I highly, highly recommend that. Okay, let's shift gears here. We've got a lot of stuff that's come on TV that has been streaming and all. We just mentioned Sweet Tooth and recommended that if you want a darker format or at least mentally prepared to put up with the darker format, pick up his book and take a look at it. Let's go on to some other things. What would you recommend for people who've just watched Loki on Disney Plus and would enjoy reading? For instance, I'm going to recommend they go out and I checked on this, it should currently be in print, the Simonson Thor run that introduces the Time Variance Authority and sets them up, as well as Mobius and Mobius.
And Frog Thor.
Well, Throg, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, he introduces Simonson's run introduces Beta Ray Bill, the Time Variance Authority. It crosses over with Simonson's. I hate that I'm boring both of y'all. It crosses.
I'm trying not to sneeze. What it is.
It crosses over with Simonson's Fantastic Four as well, where we go in and delve deeper into the Time Variance Authority. So I would highly suggest that. I would also suggest the short limited series Loki. And this is it's simply a masterful painted book, and it's very gorgeous, and it talks about the endless cycle between Loki and Thor as well. And I'd also suggest Thor Ragnarok from Marvel Comics. Has nothing to do with the movie, but it's written by Michael Omig and drawn by Michael Omig. So those would be the books I'd recommend for anybody that's watched the Loki streaming series on Disney Plus.
Did he draw Ragnarok?
He drew some of it, yeah.
I thought Ragnarok had normal looking art, not his art.
I seem to recall, maybe you're right, but I seem to recall Thor standing on top of a mound of bodies with Loki's head. And it was very Omig to me. At least the vision I have in my mind was. He may not have drawn, but he wrote it.
Are you talking about Loki Blood Brothers, written by Rhodey and painted by Asad Ribic?
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
I think Blood Brothers is. I think originally it was just called Loki, wasn't it? And they added Blood Brothers later.
Yeah, Blood Brothers came later. The original.
But that's a solid read right there. So.
Well, I would recommend Kieran Gillen's Journey into Mystery run, which I think has been collected into a thinner omnibus now, which is all about Kid Loki. And the ideal of story. It has a meta kind of thing going, but it's very entertaining and heart-wrenching at some points. It's a really good take on Loki and story and self-identity. I mean, I don't want to make it sound boring. It's a fun book. It's a fun book.
Yes, it is.
And like
Kid
I said,
Loki was a great take on Loki.
Mm-hmm.
And a very interesting character. And of course, you see Kid Loki in the Loki streaming series. I'm also going to make the suggestion for those of you getting ready for the Eternals movie. Ignore most of the Eternals stuff out there and pick up the current. Who's writing it? The current Eternals.
Kieran Gillen,
Kieran
same
Gillen.
guy that wrote Kid Loki.
Yeah,
and Ribic's doing the art on it.
Yep.
Yeah, Ribic's doing the art on it. Pick up the current run from Marvel Comics. I think they're up to issue number 5 or 6 as of this week. Big changes for Thanos and everything, but that's that's about the best introduction to Eternals you can get.
Yeah, it's about the only one because outside of this book, there are no good Eternal comics.
Yeah, they keep retooling them constantly every time they appear. They do this time as well, but at least Kieran pulls from their history and makes them more on an engageable level for the reader. So yeah, highly recommend that as well. We got Suicide Squad coming up. Albert, what would you recommend for people interested in Suicide Squad?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't recommend any of the runs that have Harley Quinn in them, but I'd recommend the old 1980s John Ostrander run.
That's the one you want to read.
Okay.
The original Austin. But you told me that there was actually one before that. I thought that was the original incarnation of Suicide Run, didn't you?
No, a Suicide Squad is an older idea. It's like it was called like Task Force X.
Yeah.
But the Ostrander version is different. Like it's the first version, I think, really of that version.
So. That is an awesome version. I'm not a DC person, but man, that is an awesome version. Amanda Waller is fantastic in there. All the characters, Captain Cold, Rick Flag, Bronze Tiger. Wonderful series.
It set the tone, and that came from Ostrander's time working with John Byrne on the Superman reboot and the Legends comics in the 80s. And so they were on the verge of a new golden age there. And then John Byrne got tired of doing Superman. But it was, highly recommend Suicide Squad. I just can't think of any of the newer stuff, any of the newer reboots that feature Harley. Not that we're knocking Harley, but there's not been as substantial a Suicide Squad. But I have high hopes for the movie. For the second movie here coming up on HBO Max on August 11th.
Yeah, and I think reviews have I think started hit this week on it, and they seem to be reviewing very well. So.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. I really want to see a good take on that, and I think James Gunn supplied us with that. So in addition to that, we've also got Spider-Man: No Way Home coming up before the end of the year. And that one's dealing with all the multiverses and all the offshoots of what's occurred in the Loki event. So my question here is, am I right in recommending the What If comics to them? Because that's largely what the
there's not really anything Spider-Man to base it off too much. Well, there's the
Spider-Verse, but there's already been a movie on that.
A Spider-Verse, which they borrowed heavily for the Miles Morales movie to an extent. There's I don't know.
So, well, I'd recommend looking into the What If comics because the What If series is coming up. There's some really good What If comics. There's also a lot of really bad and
it really varies. Over from the beginning to whatever they've done more recently, like it's really scattershot as far as what you're going to get.
Yeah, across the whole board. I can't think of anything else. What else have we got coming up? Anything else y'all want to give a shout out to in the last?
Simply because they're gonna put him in one of these movies eventually, and it's probably going to be the next Thor movie, I would hope. But I believe it finishes up this week. But Daniel Warren Johnson's Beta Ray Bill miniseries is probably the best Beta Ray Bill comic since Walt Simonson introduced them.
So. Yeah, that's been an extraordinary comic. Artwork is very surreal, heavy metal feel to it. I love Beta Ray Bill.
Yeah, to me, there's a big debate in American comics now about sales and what they can do to, like deal with the fact that manga sales run all over them. And the answer to that is books like this.
Yeah.
That's the answer. To me, books like this should be the highest selling books every month. It should like Beta Ray Bill should outsell. This mini should outsell like almost every book on the market, as far as I'm concerned.
What was Johnson's Wonder Woman book?
Scorched Earth.
Scorched Earth. That was a wonderful book as well. Yep. And it's got a lot of the feel that Beta Ray Bill has.
This one, especially this last issue, is like just amazing, energetic artwork that just explodes off. Like every panel just explodes off the page.
Sandra, you got anything?
Well, I think for Black Widow, I would recommend the Perez Black Widow. That's being a little bit old school. Well, not a little bit. It is old school, but I just have not been able to get into many of these the new Black Widow runs that they've been trying to put out.
So didn't J.G. Jones do the one with the blonde-haired woman?
Yeah,
with the land covers.
It was under the Marvel Knights line from the early 2000s.
Yelena.
Yeah. Oddly, to me, this, if you like the Marvel TV shows, this would be a run to read. But I don't know the exact name of the trade paperback. But there is for just a few issues, Warren Ellis wrote Secret Avengers. And every issue he wrote, from what I remember, were little self-contained stories because he was just a fill-in writer. And there's a fantastic Captain America story in there and a fantastic Black Widow story in there. But it's Secret Avengers, and Warren Ellis wrote it for just like a trade paperback's worth of stuff with self-contained stories. And it's fantastic. But I can't remember what the actual name of it was.
It was Secret Avengers. You mean which issue?
Well, the name of the trade paperback it's under.
I can't find a listing for that. I think it's the one with Nick Fury Jr. in it, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. All right. So that's the Warren Ellis one. Look for the Secret Avengers that has Nick Fury Jr. The Nick Fury that is, you're basically looking for Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury, and that Secret Avengers book. So, okay, that's going to round it up for us. We want to thank everybody at the Hoover Library for inviting us in to do these couple of panels here. So look for our other streaming panel. That'll be up shortly as well, if it's not already up. And thank you, Kristen Griffin at the Hoover Library. She does an extraordinary job, and we love her to death. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to a lesser extent, we kind of like Josh as well. So thank you, Josh. Also, Josh Drake and Kristen Griffin at the Hoover Library. So this has been KingdomCasts Podcast. Stan Daniel, Albert Marsh, and what was your name? Sandra Swindle.
Sorcerer Supreme.
Sorcerer Supreme Swindle for KingdomCasts Podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts. We've been doing it since 2019. So I think you've got you've got 3 seasons to choose from, and we try to post on a weekly basis. So give us a listen. Again, thank you, Hoover Library Sci-Fi Fantasy Fest, and thank you all for joining us. Join us with our other comic book panels as well. And we're going to sign off here. You can tell because I've moved my arm to stop the